All right, Jeremy, we're sitting here today, October 2024. Your team, as it stands, is 10 agents. Year to date, 1.1 million in GCI, 45 million in volume, 139 closings, and we've got give or take about 6 or 7 administrative hires on the team.
Yep.
Okay.
That's pretty close.
Let's go back in time to that first hire. Walk me through, how long ago was the first hire you made?
First hire I made was in 2014. So approximately, 10 years ago.
Okay, about a decade ago.
Yeah.
And
so
what did the business look like at that time?
Well, I was just ramping up, but I was ramping up pretty quick. And so I was just finding I didn't have enough time to follow up with people. So I literally just hired a friend to, like, a few hours a day to call people just to check in with them and sit and see how they were doing. And that was a pretty informal first hire. It was just like, I need help. Can you help me follow up with some people? That was my first hire, but my first real, like, administrative, once again, that's kind of informal. My first real hire was an executive assistant.
Okay.
That was Lacey. I hired her full time, sort of. She said she could work anywhere from 1 hour to 6 hours a day. And I was like, yeah, I don't know how much I need you, but I know I need help. And she said, I just want to be able to drop my kids off at school and pick my kids up at the end of school. And I was like, all right. And so about 2 months in, she said, do you remember when you were hiring me and you said, maybe it will be only a couple hours a day. Sometimes we'll use that full 6 hours. She's like, I think I've worked 6 hours every single day since I've been with you. And so I didn't realize how much I needed an assistant. And I think it's hard as a single agent, to know how we can truly leverage out and let other people take pieces of the business, and how that works. And so I actually hired her in like 2016, I think, is the year I had hired her.
Okay. So. And I think you've shared with me before, but when you brought her in, you sort of had this, like, this fear of letting go, right? And I think, I might have the story a little bit off, but you're sitting there kind of like looking over her shoulder, and I think, like, at some point she looked at you and goes, like, are you going to let me do what you hired me to do?
Yeah.
Kind of moment.
So there are a couple things with that. Number one was, like, when I was hiring her, I knew I needed to hire somebody, but I was like, I just don't know what I'm going to have them do for sure.
And I think that's a lot of people ask that question all the time. Like, what am I actually going to have them do?
Yeah. But I was like, but I'm so stressed. And there were times, like, I would go, start working at 5 or 6 in the morning and be working until 10 at night. And, like, that's just not sustainable. Right. And it's like, I need to figure out how to leverage, like, systems and assistants or whatever, so that I'm not working that much. And so I put one ad out there that I was looking for a real estate assistant. I didn't put it anywhere, like, in too many places. And she was my one applicant. And she came into my office and she said, yeah, I want to apply for the job that you have as a real estate assistant. I was like, okay. And she's like, and here's my resume. And it's like, okay, awesome. And I was like, so I asked her a couple questions. Then she followed up with me like 3 weeks later, and I was like, yeah, I know I need to hire somebody, and I like you, I just don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how to do this. And she's like, well, you just figure it out and let me know. And then she calls me like another 3 weeks later, just wanted to see if you had already hired for that position. And I was like, no, I haven't. And you know what? Let's just do this. Let's start on Monday. you just come in and we're going to figure this out. And so,
It's safe to say you didn't know what the heck you were doing.
I had no idea. So this is what I did that first day. I was like, okay, I'm going to get there an hour before her. And then I'm just going to figure out, like, because I used all paper files, like manila folders with clients' names on them. And that was, I didn't have any, like, I mean, I had kind of a contact management for follow-up stuff, but like people I was actually working with. Anyway, so I just took one file at a time. I was like, okay, what do I need to do for this person? Oh, okay, I just need to search some properties for them. And so I was like, okay, but Lacey's not going to know how to search properties for them, or she's not going to know how to put this offer together. So I'd write a note on that file and say, search properties, prepare a buyer representation or something, and then ask me how to do buyer representation. And then I put that in a pile. And then I grabbed my next one and I was like, okay, what could I have her do for this person? And then I'd make her a pile, and then some of them I was like, oh, I just can't really have her do anything on this one, so I'll keep that one right here. And so then she would come in and she would, like, I was like, okay, here's the pile with the sticky notes of kind of what you need to do, and just ask me questions. She sat literally on the opposite side of my desk, and I worked. She asked me questions. I did a little training while she needed to figure out how she was supposed to do her stuff. And then it just, like, then I was like, oh my gosh, like, she can now do e-signs for me, and she can now prepare like my showings for me. She can call other agents to set up those showings. Oh, she can do this. Oh, she can do that. Oh, she can follow up with the title company and schedule this closing for me. And at first it feels just like little bits and pieces of things on each file. But then once that person knows how to do that, like, and you have the right person, it just works so good.
So like two things come to mind. You ran an ad.
Yep.
You had one person apply.
Yep. I was lucky. Okay.
Hey, I'll take luck over skill most days. So so one person applies. Thank God she was persistent and followed up with you twice, because you wouldn't have hired her.
Yeah.
So but you got lucky. So there wasn't a lot of depth. It wasn't like you had to interview 100 people. Looking back, obviously now Lacey was a great hire, but if I'm sitting here today looking for leverage, would you recommend the first person you meet hire, or how have you changed your kind of hiring process since then? Just because that's kind of unique.
So now we try to plan ahead of when we're going to need that person. And so we're not like working in like emergency mode to hire somebody. And so it's like, okay, we can feel the workload, and we know the next hire we need to make. So we're thinking 6 months ahead. Okay. And with that, there's the comment, slow to hire, quick to fire. And so slow to hire means put out a lot of ads, get out a lot of as many applicants as you can. Be specific on like what you're looking for, so you don't get applicants that you're wasting each other's time. But get lots of applicants, interview people, make sure you get the right person for the job, because sometimes if you only have one applicant, what are you comparing against? If you only have 3 applicants, you're like, oh, well, this is the best of the 3, and you hire the best of the 3, but then it's like, if you had 10 options and you picked the best of 10, you could have got a very different level of person. And I found that does make a difference to have, lots of options and hire the best of all of those options. And so a lot of people want to just hire friends or family or whatever, someone that they happen to know, and that can work out, but it can also not work out as well. So,
it can. And I think you said it there, right? Like, I think a lot of people go with the mindset of like, oh, I like you, I'll hire you.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always necessarily work out, right? You're not looking to hire someone that you like. You're looking to hire someone that can perform in a role within the company.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've had friends apply for our jobs. I mean, and I just tell them like, look, like, if you are the best person, I will hire you. But like, the reality is I have to make sure that the person I put in this position is the best person for the job, not just for the business sake, but also for that person's sake, because I know people have strengths and weaknesses, and we want to make sure that you're going to thrive in the position as well.
For
And
sure.
so we've interviewed and had friends and other agents at Keller Williams, or even from other offices, people from title companies that we know really well. And it's like I don't want to hurt their feelings by turning away, but like setting the expectation that, hey, it is a full hiring process, and you may or may not be the most qualified for this particular position we're looking for. And we've had people that, like, good once again, good friends, good acquaintances, good co-worker type people that haven't made our final cut. And it's like, hey, we'll keep you in mind for future opportunities, but we did find a candidate that is a better fit.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good thing to talk about, right? You got lucky, you had that one great hire. She was with you for a long time too, nearly
6 years,
7 years before. And it wasn't the parting of ways ended with her having to relocate.
Yeah. Her and her husband moved to Eastern Idaho. So
yeah. So get a bigger pool, right? The more people you're interviewing, the better talent you'll find, and the better interviewer you will become. So go back to compensation. Just touch on that. Now, Grant, I know that first hire was in 2016. Money looks different today than it did then, but just kind of walk me through your thought on compensation, and how did you pay? Was it an hourly thing? Was it hourly, went to more structured over time into a salary? What happened there?
Yeah, so most of our hires were hourly in the beginning, and now our staff is probably 2/3 on the salary side of things, with some hourly people still. Compensation, yeah. So that's just, I do think in the beginning hourly just makes more sense, because you don't want to commit to a big salary that you're just not sure. You're trying to figure out some of those kinks and some of those processes and things, and you just don't know if you're going to need them for 40 hours. That was my thing. I was like, I just don't know if I need you for like full time or not. I couldn't even fathom how I could use them for 40 hours.
How many transactions, and ballpark it, how many transactions were you doing when Lacey came on the team?
I was doing, let's see, I think I'll tell you 1 second. But it was because I know in those earlier years, I had a year where I had like 37 transactions. Then the next year I doubled to 70.
Okay.
I can't remember if I hired her when in the 70 year or the year after I hit 70.
As you look that up, was the year you did 70 as a solo agent, was that a fun year for you?
That was a highly, highly stressful year.
Okay.
Because one of the things that stresses me out is when, having problems is stressful sometimes, right? Dealing with like problems and transactions, that's one kind of stress. But the stress that to me is more stressful than that is when you just can't help all the people that need help.
Sure.
And you're just like, I have 30 people I'm trying to show houses to, or this or that. It's like, well, I can't get you in my calendar. Or you go to show houses to one client in the morning, and they're like, yeah, this is the perfect house. We want to make an offer on this one. And like, okay, I'll get that written up later today. But then you have 2 more clients that you have 3 or 4 hour blocks of showings with, and you finally get to the point where you can even write that offer like 10 hours later. And they're like, dude, are we writing an offer on this house or what?
Yeah. And they're excited, right? So, really, what it boiled down to, Jeremy, like the money's great in a sense because you're solo agent and all of it's going to you. But what the underlying thing I'm hearing there is service began to drop.
Yeah. And the only way for me to try to still do all the service that I felt I needed to give people was work more hours. And at some point, that's just not healthy and not sustainable.
Well, it's not really scalable. And really, I mean, you, like you said, you're waking up at 5, working till 10 or 11. I mean, 7 days. I mean, you got a family. I mean, that just doesn't sound like it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I just pulled up well, let me say one comment about that on that stress level and family and all that. Like, I literally could feel pulsating, like, stress in the sides of my head. And it was like, I would feel it frequently. And that was a weird thing for me, because I typically am not someone who gets overly stressed.
Yeah.
But that was stressful.
Yeah. It sounds like you had balls in the air that you weren't able to catch, right?
Yeah. So in 2015, I did 75 transactions.
Okay.
75 combined sides. And that year it was just me. And I'd mentioned I had a friend kind of helping, doing a little bit of follow-up with people, just checking in with them and seeing if there's anything that they wanted to take a look at. And then it was the beginning of 2016, I hired Lacey as an executive assistant, and I actually brought on another agent to my team to just do showings for me. And then in 2016, we did 106 transactions. So
you say now, right, when you're hiring now, you're kind of thinking, okay, what's 6 months, what's maybe a year out where we're going to see the next opportunity. Sitting here today, what would have you advised yourself back in 17? Would have you had that experience of 75 and the stress and the sinking feeling of service not being where it should be? Would have you made that hire at 40 units, 50 units?
Yeah, I would have made that hire a year earlier for sure.
Okay.
So
you would have wrapped up that 1 year at 36 units, and really, if you could redo it, which obviously you can't, but that's when you would have gone into the hiring process, would have been at that year of 36.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
And then one of the things people struggle with, and I know I struggled with this too, is like, well, number one, like what do they do? But then, okay, training someone, like the time to train them is like, oh, it's going to take so long to train them to do this. And I have to really step back, because like I could just prepare this contract or this e-sign in like 5 minutes, or I'm going to have to teach them this whole process about how to log in, where to go, where to pull information from. Like, and then it's like, it's going to take me 20 or 30 minutes just to teach them how to do this one thing. And so it feels very like counterproductive initially.
Sure.
Because like you have to take those steps back for training. But then it's like, okay, well, how many times do they have to repeat that process for me to have made up the difference in time? It's like, okay, if it takes me 10 minutes and it takes me 30 minutes to train them, the third time they've done this is now break even for me on my time savings.
Yeah.
And their forward is just complete leverage and allows you to.
I think that's really good insight, because I think that is the hard part. Like, why would I slow down to show you something I know? But it's not just that first slowdown. It's like you're going to do this again and again and again, week over week, month over month, year over year.
Yeah. And in this business, they're like, processes are very repeat. Yeah. Right. I mean, like we prepare buyer representation agreements, and we go show houses, and we prepare listing agreements, and we coordinate with photographers, and we coordinate with stagers, and we coordinate with title companies. And it's just like, it's not there. There's the little fine tune, or the little differences from each transaction, but the large majority is a repeat process.
Yeah. So what once Lacey came into the role, what happened to your temples and the side of your head? Did it all start to?
Oh, it started to feel so good. So, well, and there were actually two parts, because part one was like, all of this administrative stuff that like needed this paperwork things that just needed to be just prepared or coordinated. It's like all of a sudden all this stuff can be happening while I'm helping my clients do what we need to do to negotiate and to meet together for the presentations or to meet together to go look at houses or whatever. And the other one that was like really great was that second hire, which was really close at that same time, having a showing assistant, someone who could help alleviate my commitment to showing homes in the evenings and weekends. And so that really started to free my time where it's like, oh, I don't have to be out until 10 o'clock tonight showing homes. I can have this other agent. And the reality is you don't have to have an employee agent to do this. Like even just like
you can have a referral partner, or there's a bunch of different ways to do that.
I mean, there's new agents and there's other agents in the business that they would love to just go show homes.
Love it.
And I know
it could be a cost per door, right? I mean,
yep. And so there's that leverage point that utilizing the leverage of systems and utilizing the leverage of other people in your life. It's great for yourself, and it's also great for your clients. And it's also great for other people because now you get to provide opportunity for other people to have jobs, and you get to provide jobs that they like, and provide opportunity for other agents that maybe they're not quite producing at the level they want, or they love showing houses more than they do anything else. So let them show houses for you. Now, if you love showing houses 24/7, great. Keep that to and just keep on doing it. But if you find that's like, you know what, I like showing 20 houses a week, and beyond that, someone else can do the showings, then those leverage pieces are awesome.
Yeah. I was at a KW event, and Gene Rivers had said this to me, and I think it's really, I think it's true, because I hear it from agents who get busy and they have that fear of the first hire. I think there's a lot of the things that you touched on that they're scared of, right? What do I do with them? How do I compensate them? And all those different things. But I think underlying all that is this idea of that, like, people only want to work with me.
Mm-hmm.
And Gene at this event had said, your consumers, your clients, your friends, your family, however you conduct your business and grow that, they're loyal to you to an extent, but they're really loyal to the service you provide.
Yeah.
And if that service goes away, watch how fast they won't be loyal to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so it sounds like, with what you kind of had that experience with, that became the decision, right? You had to kind of choose me doing this or keeping that service piece high.
Yeah. Yeah. So
okay.
it's always in this business. I mean, we know that there's the different levels of agent teams, right? Level 7, level 2, level 3, whatever.
Yeah.
And each step of that growth has its own challenges, and every hire it's a little bit different, and it's always a tweaking of things and figuring out how things are going to work best. And there are so many different systems that are available to us these days that, depending on the kind of systems you're using, you may or may not need certain people for certain positions.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Technology is certainly helping on some of that.
Mm-hmm.
Last question for you. Who did you have to become once because really you're moving from kind of a sales role, Jeremy, into more of a leadership role, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who did you have to become as your team grew? Like how did you have to evolve personally to attract and retain talented people?
Yeah. Well, a few things on that. Number one is I had to be someone that held other people accountable.
Mm-hmm.
So asking people to fill out reports or to fill out numbers so you know where things are. inspecting what you expect, right? To assure that things are moving in the way you want. And sometimes we find that if we don't inspect what we expect, we find that we didn't even train to the expectation, and someone might not be fulfilling it, and they don't even realize they're not fulfilling it. So I had to become a trainer. I had to become I don't really want to say a manager, but I had to be a leader and a coach on all those things.
Yeah. I think there's, in an ideal world, you have a small window of management, right? When they're coming on.
Yeah.
And once they're trained, and if they're truly talented, you shouldn't have to manage them.
Right. Yep.
Right. There should be clear expectations, and there should be alignment around goals and things like that. But I do think it's probably a good idea if you are managing somebody 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months into a role.
Yeah.
You might not have the right person if you're constantly having to manage them, if you will.
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing. Like sometimes you can accidentally or like get the wrong person into your hires, and you have to be realistic with yourself, with the health of your business, and the health of that person as well, because I don't know if I know maybe I'd be passive aggressive. Like if someone's not really fulfilling their duty, I'm not one to just like hammer into somebody hard.
Yeah.
Usually have soft conversations. If the soft conversations or fierce conversations, depending on how you want it to be. But then if someone's not fulfilling those things, like, you have to just be transparent and honest. Like, hey, this isn't working. And sometimes we're scared to have that conversation with people and thinking that we're going to hurt their feelings. But sometimes they're feeling the same thing. You're like, you're right, this isn't working.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, good. I'm glad we both feel that way.
Yeah. It's kind of like a relationship. You sort of know if it's working, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And, if I love the KPA process of hiring. So I would highly recommend anyone that's doing hiring use the KPAs and career visioning to take that class in the 30, 60, 90. But it really is helped us realize that all people have their strengths and their weaknesses, and that is perfectly fine.
Yep.
Because you don't necessarily want all of the same strengths with everybody on your team, because that might not be the right fit in a certain role to, be overly aggressive. A client care person probably needs to be someone who's a little more tactical with people. And anyway, just everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, and getting the right people in those right spots, and that KPA process helps that.
Yeah. And for those of us that don't know, you and I obviously know what KPA is, and it's, we're both at a company that is just all acronyms. So what is KPA for those that don't know?
The Keller Personality Assessment.
And so give me just a 30-second, 40,000-foot view on that tool, how you use it, and just sort of touch on that for me.
Oh yeah. So when we've gone through some of the applicants and kind of picked out those that we feel their resumes seem reasonable for the position that we're hiring for, we'll ask them to do the Keller Personality Assessment, and that takes them 30 to 60 minutes to complete. And the assessment results just tell us a number of things, but one thing is we can get a report that shows all their best fits within the Keller Williams real estate job opportunities, whether that's on a team or whether that's individually, whether that's with a market center or with Keller Williams International. But you can see all the highest fit profiles there. And then the other part it shows is like a lot of the characteristics of the person, such as like, do they have high or low logical problem solving? Do they have high or low optimism? Do they have high or low rapid problem solving? And all of those things, like you might think, oh, being high on all these things is good, but sometimes, like I said before, like there's sometimes where being super optimistic might not be the best fit for a particular job. And I tend to be overly optimistic. So
Yeah.
there's certain jobs I probably shouldn't have.
Yeah. Nothing could go wrong ever, right? I'm
Yeah.
driving down the highway. The third wheel's falling off the car. I'm like, I'm gonna make it where I'm going, you know?
Yeah. Says my KPA says Jeremy tends to be optimistic even when the situation doesn't merit it.
I think mine reads exactly the same.
Yeah.
So again, just having a good tool to kind of help in your decision-making process. So, you know, a lot of candidates, but then having something that you can have a baseline. Is this person going to, if we hire them, do they have the highest opportunity to be a good fit in this role?
Yeah.
Yeah. Am I placing them where they will really thrive?
Yeah.
Awesome. Jeremy, I appreciate this information. I think it's super informative. And I know there's a bunch of people out there that are looking to grow. And I think if they can learn from somebody who's made mistakes and done a lot right, but can learn from you, that's awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I'm always happy to share.